So the most important change is that the ICF inserted the word ICF before the core values when it comes to ethical practice, which of course encompasses a big part of what are the values or the pillars that a coach will build their business and their professional practice on. And those core values are professionalism, collaboration, humanity, and equity. So I think that the recent updates, the fact that they've highlighted that is really trying to brand what a qualified and certified coach is compared to perhaps a non-qualified or an unqualified or a non-ICF coach. I think that the ethical practice is really what shows up most in the day-to-day practice of a coach. It's a preemptive strategy in many ways. When you think about ethics, you think about upholding a standard and doing all the things that you require to uphold a very high standard in coaching, which includes contracts. It includes clear and explicit markers or milestones for a coach to measure their own performance, but also for a client to know what to expect from a coach. And I, again, want to highlight the importance of qualified coaching. It's really one of the biggest question marks in people's minds. And I see this when people come into our programs, that they are unclear what the global definition of coaching is and what differentiates a qualified coach from an unqualified coach. So the ethics is one of the foundational pieces of a coaching practice. It shows up everywhere before, during, and after a client engagement. It has to be respected on websites, marketing materials, how a coach brands themselves. The ICF has very detailed ethical standards that a coach must comply with to meet ICF standards. So I think in the day-to-day, it's being mindful of all of the ways that we uphold this very high gold standard of the ICF and what's expected of us from a professional lens. Yeah, when a coach is upholding integrity, in fact, when we bring people into our programs in week 4 or 5 of the program, we start to place a lot of emphasis on the day-to-day practice that a coach will adhere to in terms of ethics. We provide one-page contracts. We get coaches used to contracting very early on and having those discovery calls that explain what coaching is and isn't and sets the relationship up for that partnership of equals, because we know how important it is to embed those practices early on. So when a coach is practicing ethically with high integrity, they're usually showing up transparent, honest. We like to say clear is kind when we're contracting. So making sure that they're addressing all of the important pieces that are both contractually required, so a written contract, and then the contract of the conversation, the contract of the engagement itself. That includes confidentiality. It includes presence and maintaining that presence to the client. The more nuanced aspects of practicing ethically involves doing no harm to the client, from the sense of staying in your coaching lane and coaching position. Many people come into our community, the Coach Academy community, wondering what's the difference between mentoring, advising, consulting, therapy, and coaching. And from an ethical standpoint, it's your responsibility to know when you have crossed over to another lane. So staying in your coaching lane is a big part of ethical practice. And then, of course, being aware, acknowledging, and supporting the context of the client and their full identity. When we think about an ethical practice and the identity of the client, we want to be inclusive, open, and aware of our own bias and how it may be affecting the conversation, where the conversation goes, and how we interact with the client. So a lot of self-awareness and self-management, I think, is a big part of the ethical conduct of a coach. Yeah, when a coach is struggling with ethical practice, they are probably still struggling with the difference between coaching, mentoring, advice, all those things that typically in society, many people will call themselves coaches, but aren't actually practicing the qualified ICF approach to coaching. So at Coach Academy, we spend a lot of time helping people differentiate the differences between the helping professions, and also creating awareness of the practices that have them moving across lanes, as we call it. So we call them swimming lanes. When you're swimming in the mentoring lane or swimming in the advice lane or swimming in the coaching lane, we really take time to help coaches understand when we move from wondering, which is a very strong ethical coaching position, to knowing or advising or telling or dictating, and how that sounds and what to pay attention to when you may be moving to another lane. They also, when a coach struggles with ethics, they may be using unauthorized IP, or perhaps they're not really understanding the consequence to the client when we do give advice and we slip into opinions and judgment. Because as coaches, we are trained to partner in a non-directive way. And that means that we're not there to solution, to fix, to save a client. It's really about that belief that our clients are whole, capable, and resourceful, and that we approach them in that way. We believe that they have the answers and they are the expert in their own lives. And so we come with questions and inquiry, with observation and witnessing, as opposed to solutioning. Yeah, the gray zone in ethics for coaches is always one that we grapple with. We have a lot of conversations about it at the Coach Academy community. And that's when typically we're in organizational frameworks and there's stakeholders, there's sponsors, there's levels of management and direct reporting, and the idea of people needing something from relationships. The stakes that we have in our relationships can often lead to a breach in ethics when you're a coach, because the position of the coach is that we have no cherished outcome from the conversation. So if a coach or a leader is coaching a direct report, we automatically think about bias, we think about hierarchy, we think about the cherished outcomes of the leader from the conversation, which lead us to question, is this really a partnership of equals? So when coaching in organizations, we want to first think about, am I the leader coaching my people in the organization, my people being the team, or maybe even other people from other teams? What do I need to be aware of to make sure that I am unbiased and that I'm creating a platform for a conversation that is really exempt of hierarchy? It's where the two people meet at the same playing field. If I'm a coach going into an organization and contracting for a coaching engagement, I want to make sure that I know who the sponsors are. I want to make sure that I know who the stakeholders are. And I want to make sure that I identify and be very clear about confidentiality and how you're going to share the progress of the coaching that's happening in the organization. What are the milestones? What are the measures of success? And how will they be communicated in a way that doesn't violate the confidentiality of the coaching itself? Yeah, I think to sum up, ethical practice in coaching is so important, and even more important when we consider the impact of qualified versus unqualified coaching in the world. I believe, and what we talk about constantly at Coach Academy and in our community, is the need to educate the public on what qualified coaching is and is not. And as coaches who are being certified by ICF, or coaches who are coming through our community specifically, we want to be sure that everyone is clear on the difference between qualified coaching and unqualified coaching. We want to keep in mind the equality or partnership of equals in the relationship. We also want to make sure that we're always putting the client's needs before our own. We say we coach from the client's beliefs, not ours, which means that self-management is actually what differentiates good and great coaching. When we're self-managed, we're not bringing in our own ideas and beliefs and opinions and judgments. We're allowing the client to explore from their beliefs, from their attitudes, from their emotional standpoint, and from their experience, and really holding back that desire to have an agenda, to lead the conversation, or to bring in relating, or to take over with solutions and fixing and saving. So I think overall, if we can support qualified, certified coaches to speak to the difference between qualified coaching and unqualified coaching, we are also helping to educate the public and to educate the consumer to know what to look for when they hire a coach.